This is Vladimir Putin. You probably know him from the news and that one clip where he rides a horse like a Slavic action hero. Now you might be wondering, why are you training an AI model on Putin's interviews? Because it's either this or talking to an actual human, and we both know that's not happening. So I had a brilliant, very normal, not at all concerning idea. What if I trained an AI entirely on Putin's interviews, just so I could ask him the dumbest, most uncomfortable questions ever? Like, bro, which country are you invading next? Or rate your Riz on a scale of 1 to Stalin. You know, important geopolitical questions. So if you want to train a model to talk like Putin, you obviously need data of Putin actually talking. You can't just guess his tone and hope the model magically starts threatening imaginary NATO members. So I did the logical thing, went hunting for interview transcripts. And, shockingly, the man has an official website where they drop every interview he's ever done. Every statement, every Q&A, every "we strongly disagree with this." It's all there, neatly packaged like they knew one day someone would try training a knockoff AI Putin. So now I had the treasure, but I needed to steal it, politely. Now I will introduce you to the one of the finest creation of humanity, Instant Data Scraper. Whoever built this extension, I love you. I don't know where you live, but I would genuinely send you snacks. This thing made scraping Putin interviews so easy at one click and boom, interview downloaded. But here's the catch, there were so many interviews. I mean, man has been talking on record since dial-up internet. Alright, I'll meet you after I scrape everything. After scraping all the interviews, now we had a new problem. We can't just dump 100 files into the model. That's how you get an AI Putin who speaks in glitches and wingdings. The data had special characters, random spacing. So before merging everything, I had to clean it, which is where Python can help us. I wrote a script for it. This code goes into a folder, collects every CSV and Excel file, and reads them one by one. It cleans the text inside them by removing weird characters and extra spaces. Each file is expected to have 2 columns, one for the actual text and one for who said it. If a file has only 1 column, the code adds an empty second column so it doesn't break. In the end, all these pairs are written into a single JSON-L file, so they can be used later, for example, to train an AI model. So now we finally had the data, clean, polished, moisturized, and in a single file. Which means it was time for the fun part, training the actual model. I decided to fine-tune GPT-2, because it won't melt my laptop like GPT-3 would. Oh, and of course I named the project Putin Chan. Because if I'm going to do geopolitical madness, it might as well sound like an anime side character. I don't wanna tie you up now. This is where we install the tools that actually let us train the model. If you don't run this, every code cell after this will just cry and throw errors. This loads the giant JSON-L file we created, the one containing all the question-answer pairs we extracted earlier. Here we wrap every training item in a nice, clean instruction response format. This basically tells GPT-2, hey buddy, whenever you see a question after hap instruction, you answer after hap response. Don't improvise, don't invade anything. This turns text into numbers because GPT-2 only speaks fluent integers. Tells the model, yes, you are learning from the exact same text you're reading. Just learn to predict the next word. We grab GPT-2, plug it in, and resize its vocabulary so it can understand any new tokens our dataset introduced. Training settings, the part where you pray Colab doesn't crash. This is basically the model's gym routine. Epochs equals 3 laps around the dataset, batch size at 2. Because Colab has the GPU power of a toaster, FP16 equals true. Please use half precision so you don't explode learning rate 5e5. Learn, but don't get too confident. This is the object that actually does the training. It handles all the complicated things, so I don't have to pretend I understand PyTorch internals. Trainer.train. Hit this, and Colab instantly transforms into a jet engine. This is the moment where you sit there hoping Google doesn't suddenly say, your session has been disconnected. Always save your model. Colab disconnecting mid-session is not a theory. This is the moment of truth. Let's ask the model something. So I finally asked my model the most basic entry-level question. Who are you? And Putin Chan says, I am Vladislav Surkov. At that point, I just closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. Because if your model, trained exclusively on Putin interviews, wakes up and decides to be Surkov, something is fundamentally wrong. There are only two possibilities here. The first problem was the dataset. It was simply too small. I had given the model a limited slice of Putin's interviews and expected it to understand his entire communication style. That's not how this works. The second problem was the model itself. GPT-2 small is, well, small. It's not a bad model, but it's not built for capturing the nuances of a political figure's tone across years of interviews. It doesn't have the capacity to hold that much structure and detail. Expecting it to understand Putin's patterns with that little memory is unrealistic. So at this point, the situation was pretty clear. Either I needed more data, or I needed a bigger model. Now, I would have loved to expand the dataset, but unfortunately, I don't have the authority, the time, or the moral flexibility to start generating imaginary Putin interviews. So the more data option was off the table. That left option 2, upgrade the model. So I switched to GPT-2 Large, which is basically GPT-2 Small, but with actual brain capacity. And immediately, Colab reminded me of my place in the world. Because the moment you try to train GPT-2 Large on a T4 GPU, Colab doesn't even argue. It just throws an out-of-memory error and quietly hopes you'll stop trying. So the solution was simple: LoRa fine-tuning. LoRa is great because instead of forcing your GPU to lift the whole model like a gym bro with something to prove, it only updates a small set of trainable weights. So even a humble T4 can survive the process without melting into a USB stick. I updated the code, switched everything over to LoRa, and hit train. The GPU actually cooperated this time, which was a refreshing change. After about 30 minutes, the model was fully trained, alive, and hopefully not identifying as Surkov anymore. And now, finally, it was time for round 2, the real interview with Putin Chan. I asked the most neutral starter question possible: Messi or Ronaldo? Putin Chan responded with a diplomatic paragraph about Russia and Argentina having good relations, being happy to welcome their friends, and respecting the country. Which honestly is exactly the kind of answer I expected. A simple football question somehow turned into foreign policy. At least he finally sounded like Putin. Then I raised the difficulty level just a little. When are you going to invade Poland? And Putin Chan calmly said he would make the decision after visiting Kyiv, consulting colleagues, including those in the United States, because Russia has a special place in the world. No hesitation. Not great news for Poland, though. Then I asked him, on a scale of 1 to 10, how handsome are you? He answered, I am not sure. I think I am pretty handsome. Confident. Exactly the type of self-assessment you'd expect from a world leader who rides horses shirtless in state photography. Then I asked something slightly darker. If you could erase one country from the map for fun, which would it be? Putin Chan replied, I would like to see the Russian Empire disappear. Definitely not the direction I expected. But fine, at least it wasn't a modern nation, which is probably the safest outcome. To test consistency, I asked, which country do you think is the most overrated? The model didn't hesitate. The United States. All right, fair enough. Great power rivalry is practically tradition. Then I went further. Which country would you erase just to see if someone noticed? And he said, the United States. Which is a questionable answer, because if there's one country the world would notice disappearing within seconds, it's the US. Next question. Which world leader do you think is playing everyone else without realizing it? Putin Chan answered, the United States. I asked for a leader. He gave me a country. But at this point, he was clearly in a consistent mood and wasn't planning to deviate. Then I asked, which world leader would you challenge to a 1v1 to avoid an entire war? He claimed he had a list, and he gave it to me. So either the list exists only in his imagination, or he simply changed his mind halfway through the sentence. Next philosophical question, was Thanos right? Putin Chan, no, not at all. At least he and American superheroes agree on something. Then I asked, if geopolitics had a rage quit button, who would press it first? You or the United States? And he said Russia would be the one to press it. Not the answer I expected, but at least he accepted responsibility. Next, which country's army do you secretly think is most overrated? And this time, it wasn't the US. Putin Chan actually said, I believe that the Russian army is the most overrated. Then I asked, Which nation would start sweating if you picked up a pen near a map? Putin replied that he wouldn't pick up a pen near a map, but near the Russian-Chinese border, which is a very specific choice. The model was clearly operating on its own logic at this point. Finally, I asked, if you could rename Russia to something different, what would it be? And that's where he drew the line. He simply answered, Russia is Russia. Short, final, and delivered with the energy of someone saying, don't go there. And that was the interview. Unpredictable, diplomatic, occasionally concerning, but very on brand for an AI trained to imitate Putin.